In today's video tutorial, we're going to be showing you how to add moderators and admins to your Rust server hosted by Sublightservers.com. First thing we're going to want to go ahead and do, if this is the first time you're adding any admins or moderators, is stop your server. This is critical because the file that we need will not be able to be used unless it's been created. So let's go ahead and wait for the server to stop. It'll usually take between 10 and 30 seconds to stop. And we're going to go ahead and hit the Steam ID lookup. We're going to want to have that ready in the background because we're going to need to get the Steam 64 ID of anyone you want added. So now that the server stopped and we have the Steam ID IO website open, we're going to go to the Configuration Files button. And you're going to see here, add admins and moderators to your server. It's going to be the users.cfg. Just go ahead and hit the text editor. And in here, let's say we want to add a owner, aka an admin. You're going to do owner ID space, and then it's going to be the Steam 64. So I'm going to get a Steam 64 ID. We're just going to hit copy to clipboard, and then you paste that in, and then space. Now let's say you don't know who 7656119. You don't know who that is. So let's just go ahead and add a note to that. So the next field is going to be the optional username. So you'll just do the quotes. And I'm just going to say this is, hungover furball, end quotes. And then say you want to have a reason. So say you have a large server, you have a lot of moderators, something like that. Just do another space, quote, and then just say, because he is owner. And then that. Now you pretty much rinse and repeat the same process. Instead, if you want to add a moderator, you just do moderator ID space. And then once again, you would go ahead and get your moderator's Steam ID. I'm just going to leave it as hungover furball because this is just an example. We would just paste that. And then once again, space. You could put his name. You don't have to put these fields after the Steam ID, but it just helps keep everything organized. And then you could say something like, new mod in training or something like that. Just some sort of note. And you always want to make sure anything that is not the Steam ID has quotes around it, because if you have a space in here, it'll mess up the formatting. So you always want to make sure you do space, quotes, put whatever it is, quotes, and then if you want to add another thing, space, quotes. And any moderator and owner that you add, you have to put on a new line. You can have multiple owners because that is basically an admin, and you can have multiple moderators. Once again, just making sure you put them all on their own line. So we're going to go ahead and hit save and exit. And now let's just make sure it actually saved. Just hit text editor, and as you can see, it did save. And we're just going to go ahead and start our server back up. Server startup time can be anywhere between a minute and 10 minutes. It really just depends on what class of server you ordered, CPU performance wise, and how much is going on your map. If you have a, advanced map with lots of entities and things like that, server startup can take a little longer. The easiest way to tell when your server has successfully started is by making sure you have this auto refresh button ticked and then waiting until this says 0 out of whatever player count you have. In this case, this test server named Cool New Server has a 50 slot count. So we're going to wait until that says 0 out of 50 just to verify that we didn't somehow break our server by adding that users .cnf or .cfg file. Being I have myself added as a moderator and an admin, it might get a little weird, but that's fine. It's just a test server. We're not actually going to be playing on it. You'll usually see the CPU usage spike. That's while it's generating all of the entity stuff, and then the CPU usage will drop once it gets ready to actually fully initialize. And then RAM will sit around 3 to 4 gigs, 5 gigs if you have a lot of entities. And as you can see, 0 out of 50, that means our server has successfully started. We can even go to the web console and give this a second to load. And you can see server startup complete, Steam server connected, and checking for new databases. So that tells us that the server has successfully started. Anyway, thank you for watching this Sublightservers video tutorial.